In today's video, what we're gonna do is every spring I like to do something to my Scout. I like to do little upgrades over time because I bought the cheapest Scout 60 in 2016 they had, the base model, black, no options, absolutely the cheapest one. You can't buy one that cheap anymore. That was 8 years ago. I paid $8,900 plus tax. Basically, it was the same price as an Iron 883 Sportster of the same year. I went with the Scout and I've never regretted it. Love the bike, but there are three things for sure that I would change on the bike. Three things I would have changed the day I bought the bike, but I chose to do, some other upgrades. As you can see, I've done a lot of stuff to my bike over the 8 years that I've owned it. These three things, for the most part, Indian has rectified on newer iterations of the Scout. On my 2016, the tires would be the number one thing if I had the money at the time to change out. Now, this year, I'm putting Michelin Commander 3s on this sucker. I'm not messing around with it anymore. These tires are 9 years old by their date code. They are done. These Kendas are Indian branded, and right out of the box, they're almost like big wheel tires. They're plasticky. I mean, you got to put a ton of heat into these tires to get a pretty decent amount of grip out of them. Never liked them. They're getting replaced. The next thing, which I did in a previous video, was the headlight. It's easy upgrade. You put in one of the Pathfinder LED or the adaptive Pathfinder or an Eagle Light, and you can greatly improve your visibility on the road and what you can see. The last thing, which is what we're doing today, is the shock. The rear shock on these, if you notice, my 2016 Indian has the same shock, I believe, that the 2015 Indian Scout had on it. The Scout 1133 and then the 60, they both share this awful shock. It's not progressive, it's not adjustable, it's a constant spring rate. I don't know how it's valved internally, but on the crap roads we have in the Detroit metro area, you hit a big enough pothole, you get that quick jolt in the suspension, it'll launch you out of the seat because the spring and the shock basically lock up. So if you don't get bounced out of your seat, you get a pretty jarring shock that goes up your spine. I've got a bad back. I had an issue when I was in the Army that led many years later for me to have back surgery. When I hit the potholes we have in the Detroit metro area, there are days I don't want my Scout anymore. And it's too fun to ride to deal with this BS problem any longer. This spring's upgrade is this. I got, on a really good deal, the Indian Accessory shock. Now this one's got the external reservoir, it's fully adjustable. They make a second type that doesn't have the external reservoir and is not fully adjustable. Both of them are awesome upgrades to any Scout. The newer Scouts have a progressive wind to the spring. The shock itself looks different. It's a better shock. If anything, you wanted to save some money and you had an older Scout, like let's say 2017 and older, and you found a Takeoff shock from a newer one because someone like me just went and upgraded with the accessory shock, by all means, put it on there because it's gonna be better for sure. This thing ain't great. I love Indians, but man, tell you, I am so glad that they changed their ways on some of the parts that they went a little cheap on. The newer Scouts are far better than they were when they first came out. I love my bike. I want to ride it till the wheels fall off. Let's get these installed. It's almost criminal how easy this is to put on the bike. Well, not criminal, but you'll see what I mean. It's 4 bolts. Come on, man. I got instructions, but it's 4 bolts. Well, hey, I need more down. There we go. I have my service manual. It covers the shock removal on like 2 pages in here. But you also can take, when you buy the accessory shocks or any part from Indian for that matter, usually inside the box there's a sheet with a QR code and you can just scan that and it'll take you to the website, download the instructions, which is what I did. They don't really include instructions in the box anymore. Just like to compare, the procedure they have here with what is in the service manual. They're identical in that they don't tell you much of anything other than like remove the bolts, put the bolts back on, torque to 66 foot-pounds, I know it's that easy, but okay. So we'll just get this out of the way. Obviously, you don't need a lift to do this, but you do need some type of jack. I've got one of these pancake scissor jacks. I bought it online years ago, even with the lift. And all I did was I strapped the bike down, and I just want to lift the bike, not the rear suspension. I want to lift the bike so that the rear suspension decompresses because I'm taking the weight of the bike off of the swing arm. That way I'm taking the shock off when it's fully extended. You can easily tell if you've got your bike raised up enough on a jack, because if you hold up your new shock, the eyelets should be almost the same distance. If they are, I know I could take the shock off without having to fight it. All I gotta do is just lift it up enough that I can just rotate the tire. I mean, I've got maybe less than a half an inch of gap underneath of it. I know now the suspension is hanging by the shock itself. So then all I need to do is remove the shock. Now, it's pretty obvious, at least to me. You just do one side at a time. You know, you don't really need to block up the rear wheel. If you remove both shocks at the same time, the rear swing arm's just gonna drop down, and then you gotta pick it up to put the shock on. If you just do it one side at a time, it should be fine, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. At 65 foot-pounds, I should not need a breaker bar in order to get these guys loose. There we go. Completely undo the bottom first. And I mean, you can see that I've got the weight off of the shock because, I mean, I can move it by hand just by loosening it a little bit. I should be able to just undo these by hand. Note, no Loctite on that bolt. It does not call for Loctite in the directions. Therefore, I'm not going to put any on it. There is a washer on the upper one that I don't see on the bottom one that I think stays on the chassis. Oh, this sucker's got some threads to it. Okay, so there's a difference in these bolts too. The upper bolt is shouldered and the bottom one was not. So don't get them mixed up. Yeah, there's no Loctite on that dude either. If you end up getting the accessory shock, if you take a look at it, the two shocks are not identical. This one has the reservoir offset, and the other one, the reservoir is in line with the shock body. And the reason why is because the shocks to the center line of the bike are slightly different because of the belt. So the swing arm's not perfectly symmetrical. So visually, when you look at the bike going down the road, what Indian has done is they've offset the reservoir. So from the back of the bike to the center line, you know, down the fender, it looks the same. But in reality, the offset reservoir goes on the right side of the bike as you're sitting on it. That little detail there is not very clear in the instructions that come with the accessory shocks. So I had to find a photo on Google image search of a Scout with the accessory shocks mounted. I think the Scout Bobber 20 comes from a factory with these on. I think they're manufactured by Fox. I don't know that for sure, but they look identical to the Fox racing shocks. Don't take my word on that. I don't know that for sure. Here's our comparison. This shock here, the spring, is a little bit smaller diameter than this guy. This shock here has progressive winding on it. This one does not. They are exactly the same length. If you get these thinking you're gonna lower your Scout, you aren't. By default, out of the box with the ride height set, you can back the threaded body screw off on the shock. And that will, you know, lower it a little bit. But, you know, I'm just gonna keep it the same height. Honestly, it being fully adjustable, I'm not even sure how I need to adjust this yet, because it depends on how much you weigh as a rider, how much crap you put on the bike, what kind of riding you do. So I'm gonna have to read up on these. So I don't know how this needs to be adjusted. If any of you have these accessory shocks or some kind of other fully adjustable shocks and you know a good procedure to go about setting this up, you know, drop me a comment or something, because the instructions give some very generic information about what the settings are, but not how to set up the fully adjustable shock, you know, per rider preference. Let's get the new ones on, right? So installation is just the reverse of removal here. The shoulder bolt goes at the top, the washer goes between the shock and the bike itself. Bottom one didn't have a washer. I'll get that guy started. Then get the bottom one in. Again, it's so easy to do this, it's almost criminal. You do need a torque wrench, because you should torque these. You should torque all your fasteners to get in the habit of doing it. It's a safe, wise thing to do. I don't know if the little suggestions I do from video to video make any difference to people or whether it's annoying or not. I'm going to keep doing it because I'm just me. I just do this stuff the way I want to do it. Hopefully, you know, people find it entertaining and whatnot. I put an extension on here, not because I needed to have one. If it was a lot of torque, I'd probably just have the socket or I use a breaker bar. The reason why I've got the extension is because of the exhaust. I want to have clearance to the exhaust. If I slip off or something, I don't want the ratchet handle to smash into my exhaust pipe. The only reason I'm using the extension. Sometimes before I jump into these projects, I like to just sit and think about it for a minute before proceeding, just to make sure I understand what I need to do so that I don't end up in any trouble. Because, you know, it's expensive mistakes and then you feel like an idiot when you do that. So, according to the service manual, it's 65 foot-pounds. According to the instructions for the accessory shock, it's 66 foot-pounds. Is 1 foot-pound of torque gonna make a huge difference? I don't know, and chances are, if your torque wrench isn't calibrated, you might be off more than 1 foot-pound anyhow. So I'm just gonna do 66. That's what the instructions said that came with the shocks. Nope, there's one. Double check that bottom one. Done. That was it. Now I just got to do the other side. Other than getting the bike lifted, this is like a 5 to 10 minute job, or like as they say, it's like a 2-beer job. Not that I'm drinking while I'm doing this, but if I was, I'd have to take a lot more beer breaks because it's way too fast. That looks good. And it should clear my bag. I'll put the bag back on there so you guys can see. I think you'll see from this side just how easily this comes off. Because I got all of the weight off the bike, right? Undo the lower bolt and just undo the upper bolt. I have made this a little bit more difficult on myself because I got my swing arm bag here, but oh well, I will muddle through it. There we go. Would be nice if these bolts were chromed. They do kind of stand out there. I mean, they look okay, they're galvanized, but again, they would be a whole lot nicer if they were chromed. I guess I could swap them out for chrome bolts, but these haven't rusted. They're okay. All I got to do is torque it. Again, that's 66 foot-pounds, right? Yes, Mike, it is. We were paying attention. Well, thanks, guys. I'm glad you were paying attention because maybe I wasn't. That's it. Looks nice. That's it. So installed, you can see I got plenty of clearance between the shock and the saddlebag. It fits just fine. But these saddlebags are not the factory Indy ones. These are Leatherworks out of Stockton, California. And, you know, I don't think the reservoir shocks will fit if you have the Indian saddlebags. I don't know that for sure. You guys will have to check into that. The next thing is going to be setting these up. I'm going to read the instructions real quick, see what it recommends. Do the initial compression and rebound settings on the shock. New tires are going to come next, and then we'll go out and ride it and have some fun to figure out how this shock needs to be set up. So this is what I was talking about. The reason why Indian offsets the right reservoir, or the right shock reservoir, is because this shock is offset due to the belt in relationship to the fender and the swing arm. So when you're looking at the bike from the back, they offset the reservoir on the right side so that visually it looks like the same position that you see on the left side because of that offset due to the belt. So, you know, you can look at it here and see, you know, from the center line of the fender, it looks even. it won't matter one lick because I'm gonna put my saddlebags on there and you won't see it again. Last step here is to do the initial setup on these. Low speed urban riding is 0 clicks. General riding is 2 clicks. General riding 2 up is 5 clicks. Aggressive riding is 5 clicks. I guess it goes 0 through 5 index clicks. And so let's see. Oh, it's got it marked from on the shock itself. There's like a plus and a minus. So all I have to do is set this to 2 clicks. It probably already is. It says on compression and rebound. See, that's the thing I was saying earlier. Drop in the comments if you know how to set these up properly, because I've never had adjustable shocks on any bike I've ever owned, and I'm not entirely sure how that's done. I mean, you know, I think if I ride it and I feel that the suspension is compressing very quickly and rebounding really quickly, maybe I adjust the rebound differently from the compression so that it's softer on the initial impact, but it doesn't want to pogo me out of the seat. Let's go minus. So that's all the way down. 1, 2. Okay, so it wasn't even on 2 to begin with. We'll go all the way to the bottom of this, and then 1, 2. Do this one. These move really easily too. It's very nice. 1, 2. 1, 2. That was it. It's set up. That was incredibly easy. Again, I've had this thing 8 years and I've never taken it on a long cross-country ride. I only bebop around town, so I actually don't have a hell of a lot of miles on my Scout. And I need to put those miles on there. You know, I bought it to ride it, not to sit here and look at it. I am definitely going to get these tires changed. Actually, that's the next thing. I'm not going to do a video of it because I'm not doing it. It's a pain in the ass. I don't have the tools. I'm taking it to the dealer. I'm going to let them do it. So probably the next video coming out will be a Barney video. I still have endless work to do that bike. It's the project that never ends, right? Thanks for watching the video. I appreciate it. Again, it's a very short, kind of an easy video. It's an easy upgrade. There's no reason not to do it other than the cost. And I had pointed out earlier, if you have an early Scout, like let's say 2015 or 16, possibly a 17, depending upon what model it is, whether it's a Scout 60 or a Bobber or 1133 Scout, you might be upgrading the bike significantly just by taking some Takeoff shocks from somebody else that upgraded to these. Or maybe they put Öhlins or Fox Racing on their bike, whatever. The difference in early Scout shocks to the newer ones is night and day. In fact, you may not want to spend the extra money to get the accessory shocks like what I did, when you could just find a set of Takeoffs, you know, that have the progressive winding. They've got a better adjustment for the preload. They look like they would be much better performing shocks. I can tell you for a fact, my own personal experience with this bike with the factory shocks on there. Those non-progressively wound early Scout shocks are like a jackhammer if the roads are rough. You got smooth roads, maybe you don't need to upgrade them, but like you live in Detroit where the roads are like a bombed out war zone because of our winters, you need a soft suspension or you're gonna have back problems. Anyhow, thanks for watching. It's appreciated. If you give me a like and click the notification bell, subscribe, all that jazz so the algorithm knows that I exist, I would greatly appreciate it. And until I see everybody again, ride safe.